Hello and welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode number 170. And my guest in this episode is Dr. Mark Miller, philosopher, cognitive scientist, and happiness aficionado. And Mark is a researcher at the Center for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies at Monash University, also an instructor at the University of Toronto in the Department of Psychology, as well as cognitive science and the Buddhist psychology and mental health program. And he's also the lab manager at Consciousness and Wisdom Lab, also visiting researcher at the Center for Human Nature, Artificial Intelligence, and Neuroscience at Hokkaido University. And I was thrilled to have Mark as a guest. I brought up one of his publications and his work more broadly. So this was an honor for me to have him as a guest. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and thank you all so much for being here as well. Appreciate you. And I'm grateful to welcome Dr. Mark Miller to the IdeaCast interview series. And I say grateful because he's in this constellation of people that I just have spent years admiring the work and learning, hopefully, and trying to formulate my own sense-making schema and system. So, Mark, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Thanks, Justin. I really appreciate it.
Oh, and I do too. And welcome to the YouTube and Spotify audience. So glad to have you all here. I know this will be an informative and enriching and generative conversation. So, Mark, before we hit record, we were kicking a couple little things around, and maybe we can bring active inference and predictive processing into the fold by starting at maybe in an ontological primitive and exploring, a little bit of the information theory and the physics and metaphysics behind what Friston and others talk about, what you talk about. And so, like I said, when I asked you sort of in a preliminary way, is this even worth kicking around? But let's talk about maybe Shannon entropy and error minimization as it exists sort of pre-life and pre-Earth and how this universe coalesces and does its thing. And then we'll move very quickly into these larger, complex things that are on the screen right now.
We're gonna move to something larger and more complex.
And something that's your fort, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just am so flummoxed by the beauty and the symmetry of it all.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think I have a way to chip into this. No, I said I'm not a physicist, so you should have Carl and get him to actually. Somebody else who would be great to have on is Lars Sandved Smith. If you haven't had him on yet.
Oh no, yeah.
He did his master's with CERN. He can really do the physics.
Okay. He's
fabulous at this. He's a young guy and he's really, really good at the modeling. But here's some way that we can go in. If people at home aren't familiar, what we're kicking around here is some of the new ideas that are showing up in cognitive science. And it might not be obvious to everybody outside of the discipline, but we are in a kind of Copernican revolution right now in the mind sciences. We're changing a lot of things around, and in quite radical ways. That doesn't happen all the time. Of course, we're updating our science all the time. But these big shifts, they don't happen all the time, and we're right in the middle. We're right in the middle of one, and one of the just wonderfully elegant, just so beautiful, indeed poetic qualities that come out of this is that it's based on a maths. It's based on a maths that can be used to express what it is to be a thing. And so you have a basic kind of math that talks about how thinghood is the resistance to entropy. Mm-hmm. And you have something just, not simple. Of course, it's complex math, but it is the kernel in it is so simple that people like Julian Kiverstein joke that you can write it on a T-shirt. Actually, my students that get A+ in my courses, I give them T-shirts with the equation on it.
Oh, okay.
So you get this very simple resistance to entropy equation.
Okay.
And it's applicable in its simplest form to things that maintain their thinghood against entropy. And then as soon as you have life, as soon as you have an autopoietic, self-organizing, complex system, the same, and it almost feels to me like, how could it be otherwise? Of course, the same maths are applying. So this shared mathematical signature, this quality of resisting entropy. Mm. Of course, life does it different than non-life. So what you have there is you have a very simple idea that connects all things, including living things. And then from very, very simple living things up through very complex living things like us, and then past that, because actually the maths of this cognitive framework are scale free. They apply to any self-organizing system bound in a particular way, resisting entropy in a certain way. But we can use it, for instance, like up at the upper end, the weird end. I mean, the both ends are kind of weird. Up at the other weird end, you have people like John Clippinger, who's really interested in taking, well, for instance, some of the work that we've been doing on psychopathology and then applying it to systems. Can you think about governments as addicted or depressed? Can you think about cities malfunctioning in similar ways? Well, if you have a scale-free maths that's expressing self-organizing systems resisting entropy, and that turned out to be an applicable language for thinking about psychiatry, psychology. Well, how interesting is it that it can scale up to a big self-organizing system? And then you can look for shared qualities between more simple and more complex self-organizing systems. But where I position myself and where I think I can serve your audience the best is up around the brainy predictive processes.
Right.
And in particular, how that kind of predictive processing system can break down and how we care for that predictive process, which is sort of my bag right now.
Okay. And hopefully I believe I selected for me, it was a very interesting and informative publication of yours. I'll reveal that in just a second, but also to speak, maybe just to throw my little tuppence in on what our entree here is that, for me, and I could be wrong because I don't know physics either, is that the lifeness, the living systems from single cell to this, resists thermodynamic entropy as well as the Shannon entropy. So that makes it kind of really unique that, you know, space is doing the thermodynamic thing. And then in some cases you see, information contained in things that are going on. So, I just, that coalescence and that uniqueness, moment of awe for that. But what I selected for you was the Ambient Smart Environment article that you had written in July of 2024.
That's nice with Ben White. Yeah.
It's forward looking, I think. And it, to me, there's so much cynicism about machine learning and large language models. And I'm on board, buzz, cynicism. But, what I got out of that article, I found, having a ray of hope and a ray of optimism for how these silico-carbon relationships can get along. So, I'll hand it over to you if you want to intro that, and then we're going to bring a lot of Friston's work in an active inference because it's really replete in the article. So,
I dig it.
To you.
I dig it. It's a paper I don't get to talk about very often, actually.
Good. I loved it.
Well, it's fabulous. And it's really, Ben White was the driver of that project. He's fabulous researcher.
Okay.
And he jokes all the time when we get a chance to present this together that this was him being overly optimistic. This is his really swinging for the optimistic fences. But it's good. It's good to think. It's good to think through the whole field. So the basic idea is something like this. The update to our view of how the cognitive system works, including the brain, of course, brain and nervous system and body, is that we're now characterizing the brain and nervous system as a kind of prediction engine. Mm-hmm. And that brain and nervous system evolved to, first and foremost, try to figure out what the world is like, try to figure out what you're like and what other people are like, to build up a generative model of the invariance in the environment so that we can make apt predictions. And the big flip, of course, you probably know, is that rather than perceiving the world passively, where the brain is just taking in information and then decoding it, it turns out that actually our experience is all endogenously generated. We're creating for ourselves from the top down the sensory signal that we're finding at the edge, and we're actually experiencing the top down generated process. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that does a couple of things for us. One, it emphasizes the kind of thing that we are. Now, the wisdom traditions all know this, but it's something that we can overlook. And that's that we're epistemic agents first and foremost. We're trying to figure out how it is. That's, again, just another beautifully poetic moment where rather than starting upstream and trying to figure out who we are at the psychological level, which can be very ho-hum. You know, you like look around, you try to make some ontologies. Who knows where you get them from? Cognition, emotion, perception. Mm-hmm. We've had these ontologies for thousands of years. They don't map it at all to the brain. You know, so like we're just throwing around ontologies, being like, oh, you're so emotional, and oh, I'm interested in cognition. But people tell me, well, are we? You know, is there ever an unemotional time? Our ontologies are no good. You know, well, I mean, they're good for some things, but it's a weird way to do science. But instead of doing that, you can come all the way back to first principles, and then look at the world afresh. Look at the processing of the system afresh, just from these first principles. Start right down to the basic maths. Think this is the kind of thing you are. The wonderful thing about starting there is right away you notice, well, first and foremost, you're an epistemic agent. You're trying to understand. This is why we get rewarded when we get information, in the same way as we get rewarded when we get food or water or anything else. We are on the lookout to figure it out. Okay, so we're on the lookout to figure it out. If you're going to be healthy over the long run, if you're going to succeed at managing entropy over the long run, then you have to have a generative model that reflects the environment well. And there's all sorts of ways the generative model can diverge from the environment. Drugs of addiction are a great example. They signal to the brain, they signal to the predictive system that certain information is more valuable than it actually is. So heroin is just telling the brain, like, everything you've ever cared about, you've just resolved all the puzzle around it. Like you just got it. You figured it out. You got it. You've got the perfect answer. And you don't. You're actually trending away. You're trending away from a life that's capable of resisting that entropy, and yet it feels like you're doing something phenomenal. That's the danger. I mean, that's really the unbelievable danger of addictive substances, behaviors too. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be well over the long run, if you're going to succeed at this resistance to entropy, you have to have a generative model that reflects the environment well. So how do you do that? Because it can be run aground all sorts of ways. Well, I'll give you one more. Since we're talking about social media, we're going to talk about tech today. So here's the dark side. Social media and the internet are real bad. They can be real bad for our kind of system. The reason is because you may not notice this, you may not know this about yourself, but because you're a generative model, because your perception is endogenously generated, that's like, it's a phenomenal thing to have evolved. Because what it allows us to do is reach through the noise to the thing that matters and to perceive it in time, to use it and not die. Phenomenal, good stuff. The problem is the same thing that liberates us, the same thing that protects us, can completely run us ashore. Because if you get in a weird belief, conspiracy theories, you know, pathologically stuck, insulated beliefs, if it's strong enough, it will bend the rest of the signals in service of it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's a fresh idea, but I think everybody already knows it, right? Mm-hmm. If you know somebody who's gone through depression, you know this already. Their whole world bends to their belief that the world is no good. If you're committed to the belief that the world is garbage, how much evidence do you have if you wanted to go out and find the evidence? If you wanted to go out and sample the world to find confirmation evidence for that the world sucks, you're gonna find it. And with the advent of the internet, the massive proliferation of information and bad information, we can basically go out and confirm any bad belief that we have. Mm-hmm. So all these filter bubbles and echo chambers are just sort of native to that. So there's two ways it can go wrong. And then we started thinking about, well, how can it go right? And to go right, there's two things you need at least, and then I'll hand it over to you. Mm-hmm. One is you need enough metacognition to know where your beliefs need updating. That's not always obvious, especially from inside the system. Right. So you need some sort of secondary system, or you need a really powerful metacognitive layer that's able to analyze, check on consistencies. Mm-hmm. And then you need to actively put pressure in investigating the world in ways that get that problematic belief moving again. Mm-hmm. So for instance, with depression is a good example. If depression, it could be characterized as like a very powerful belief that, you know, I'm a loser and the world sucks. And you just can't get out of it. You know, you just keep coming into that same attractor basin. Anywhere you look, it falls back into, I'm not good enough, the world's not good enough. Oh, let's do that. No, I'm not good enough, the world's not good enough. Things like ACT, like acceptance and commitment areas, are so powerful for some people going through that. Because basically you accept the attractor basin.
Mm-hmm.
You have a therapist say, there's an attractor basin. Now what I want you to do is I want you to accept that that's the case. And I just want you to do things that are counter to the feeling.
Okay.
Because we need to get some evidence into your system. The powerful thing that's implied there is that your system wants to optimize. That's its basic thing. It's an optimization engine.
Mm-hmm.
It will get better if it's fed the right data, and it will get bad if it's fed bad data.
Okay.
And so you have to be able to ascertain where is it running into trouble, and then you have to find ways to selectively sample from the world to get that belief moving again in a better and get into a better shape. Mm-hmm. Let's just stop there for a second, and then we can go into Ambi and Smart Tech next. How's that?
Yeah, I like that. And as we go into ASE, we are going to discover methods and means and schemas that will afford, and that's a big word in the article, is the affordances, and they're mostly Gibsonian affordances, but what are Norman affordances too, where it's more semiotic and interactive. But I'm glad you mentioned social media, because that's one of the other publications I read recently. I've watched a lot of your stuff, and I said, Justin, don't be a video vegetable. Read some publications. So I read in a medical journal you had written about the pathologies that can arise from social media use and internet consumption and so forth. And so that perhaps we can pin that, and because there are questions I have related to that, and I love Hans-Georg Moeller, and he talks about second order observer and the prophilic self and the curation of an identity, and what are the mires that we can harness for ourselves in that. So, but
actually, Justin, one way we could go is we could fork here for a minute,
okay,
and follow the line of where it goes wrong, because the better that we're able to flesh out the problems. Mm-hmm. I can use that as a case for why owning an AI can be a solution to that, and having something like an ambient smart environment, which, if you haven't heard that term before, it means you kit your house out with lots and lots and lots of information gathering equipment.
Yeah.
So you could have a toilet that checks your poo. You could, you have a fridge that knows what you eat. You have a floor that's sensing your changes in weight. You have temperature readers. You have infrared that's monitoring, changes in hormones. Like you get an environment that can read you at many, many, many scales. Mm-hmm. First thing we're thinking is like, oh God, hell realm. But actually we can give a story for why that might be hugely beneficial for our kind of organism. But maybe why don't we take a side step off and talk about some of the problems? Okay. I mean, if it's interesting.
No, I would like that, because and then when you talk about this house, it gives me, in the 4E's of 4E Cogsi, the embedded E. This is like embedded E on steroids, right? That's are embedded in a relational, right? A reciprocal, to use Vervaeke. Reciprocal relevance. But yeah, I'm gonna hand it to you, and let's use that model of social media, attention capture, the addictive nature of it, and the explore discrepancies, and yes, please, and then we'll move into the ASC, which again just fascinates the hell out of me. So
yeah, nice. So let's go back to the kernel idea. If you're a predictive system, then you're banking on having a good model of the world. It's the only way that you're going to make it work. Mm-hmm. And so the better you are at helping to update and refresh and reform your generative model, the model you have of the world, yourself, and others, in ways that trend towards how it really is. Mm-hmm. And not just reality, capital R, but meaningful reality, like towards meaningful regularities that actually exist, that matter to you, then the healthier you are. I just taught a course called Generations of Joy with John Vervaeke on his lectern.
Okay.
And the last three classes in that series, we started talking about wisdom. And this is right where we landed. That wisdom is about this trending towards the real. And, computationally speaking, that's really what we want. And that leads to health. It leads to mental, emotional, spiritual health for our kind of organism. So if we're on the same page there, then anything that diverges from that breaks the model away, that specifically separates the model you have of the world from the way the world actually works is going to be in the same way as that's absolutely essential for flourishing is going to be critical, the critical facts underlying unwellness. And social media is really, can be potentially really bad for this. If you're a grandma or a grandpa and you're just using Facebook to stay in touch with your grandkids, this conversation doesn't apply to you. I mean, that's a great use of these platforms. The problematic use is a lot of the shorts and the swiping and AI led, but also the way that we're imbibing it, because we're not just doing it 15 minutes at the end of the day. We're going to it under duress, and then people are spending 4, 5, and 6 hours at it. And this isn't just like moralizing. It's not bad. It's not bad because sort of any particular behavior is bad there. It's a problem for a couple of reasons that are like, these are facts, but it's hard unless you're in the know, you can overlook them as facts. Like, one, your perceptual system is not very good at knowing the difference between real and unreal. That's why we like going to horror movies. Mm-hmm. Because like a bit of the agent level stuff knows that you're in a theater and that you're safe. Mm-hmm. And all sorts of layers of your subsystems, they don't know anything about that. So when somebody chases somebody on the screen, there's like a sufficient number of your subminds that are like, shit, we're being chased. Like, get out of here. Yeah. And it's that confluence is the reason we go, because it's exhilarating to have like 53% of the animal act like it's being chased and have 47% of the animal reminding the animal, relax. You're like, we're totally safe.
Yeah.
We're not good at knowing the difference. So that's one. So you're flipping through all these filtered images, highly filtered images. And whether you know it or not, your generative model is on the lookout to optimize. And if you're feeding it tons of filtered images, it's encoding. It's encoding all the time. They might think like, who cares? Well, if you have the idea that the world is out there and I'm just in here and I'm doom scrolling, so who cares? That's fine. But this changes, if you take this framework seriously, it changes the importance here. Because think, it's the world I'm experiencing, including myself and others, is endogenously generated from my belief networks. Mm-hmm. So the things I believe constitute my existence. They constitute my reality. They don't bias my experience. They make. Like, they're the bricks that make my experience.
Okay.
And so when you're fiddling around with your belief networks, you are fiddling around with the constructive features of your existence and constructive features of your reality.
Okay.
So that's massive. That's massive. Suddenly the world is going to show up differently for you. You're doom scrolling 6 hours a day. The world will show up doomed. And then you've got a nasty feedback, because what you've done is you've enslaved a bad belief and you've held it and you've conditioned it. And now it's going to go out and confirm itself. Mm. How do you get out of that? Especially if you don't know. Like if you don't know that this is fabricated, if you don't know that you're selectively sampling from data sets, because you might not know that. This is when you say, no, don't you see? You have two people. One person says the world is great. The other person says the world's a bummer. And then both of them say to each other, can't you see? I can't. What world do you live in? I don't know anything about this world you live in. We live in the same city and you're having a very different experience than mine.
Right.
Doesn't that change the goal? Doesn't that change the line about what we're doing? You're just imbibing bad data. I mean, I think if we really knew in our hearts that our belief matrix was generating our reality, I think we would, and now I don't have the perfect answer to this, but I think we would have more discussions about how do I believe well? Where do I go for my information? Who do I trust? What does it mean to trust? At what point in time will I cut somebody out? And what time do I include somebody? Where's good fighting and bad fighting? Gaslighting bad, sure. Being told you have shitty beliefs, good. Mm-hmm. Work that one out. I'm writing a paper on that right now. Because it turns out, of course, you don't want to pick a bone with gaslighting. Terrible. Gaslighting is a form of control,
Mm-hmm.
is tyranny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the language of gaslighting is also problematic for our kind of system because it can prevent you from getting into meaningful arguments that you need to have because you have bad beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And for our kind of system, bad beliefs are a big deal because that's what makes up your life. So like if you believe the earth is flat or something and then, you know, a good friend of yours says that's really stupid. That's not really gaslighting. That's like an opportunity for good model update. And I don't know if we're sensitive to that yet, where we want, like, I mean, we have to shift in a way. We have to shift back towards reality and be like, I want at least some people in my life that I trust to push luck. So I joke with my students all the time. You have to have at least 2 good friends. You have to have one who like buys into all your zany, wacky ideas. And then you need to have one who's really going to call you on your shit and just be like, you got to wake up a bit here, dude. That belief is so problematic. And please trust me. Like, I'm not doing this because I hate you. I'm doing this because I love you. But you've picked up a bad belief from somewhere. And like, can we do some research and like work through this together? Because it's a bummer, you know? Yeah. And social media is awful for engendering these kinds of beliefs.
Yeah. Fully agree. In fact, there was a conversation with, I think James Smith, I think was his name, that just came out yesterday. And that came up in the conversation. And it was a matter of, the host was, and this is said in a loving spirit, the host was defending somebody who had spurious beliefs. And forgive me for the woman who was the researcher and in your camp, mm-hmm. and you were defending them because they were sniffing out bullshit and sorting things out.
Lisa Feldman
Barrett. Thank you. I had short-term memory. And that was great, that moment of tension. And then you worked through it. And again, props to the host for that epistemic humility to say, oh, okay, let me hear what you have to say, rather than going, well, F you and blah, blah, blah. That was a moment. That was a good moment. So I just bring that up as an example. But to go to social media for a minute,
tell me.
Not only are we in our own ensconced doom scrolling environment, but then we get on Twitter or Blue Sky or Mastodon or whatever, and we get in aggregated conversations with people, and just seeing that is an interesting anthropological endeavor, because it's first of all, it's usually the Graham's hierarchy of disagreement. It's always those ad hominem attacks and very low reasoning attacks, again, based on this cognitive dissonance or whatever you're getting out of your scrolling and your bad information. And so so then we get into the commons, the social commons, and we argue from levels that there's the argumentation is just terrible. And I'm not trying to be a debate, team coach here. It's sad to see, because people are wasting so much entropy or opening up the entropy for nothing, for frivolity, which is just damaging to our psyches.
You're onto something really special and important there. See, again, this is one of those things that I think if you take the framework seriously, then the discussion needs to change a little. Like, I think you don't need to have something like active inference to start thinking we have to argue better, and believe better, and we need critical thinking. You don't need it to make those cases. Mm-hmm. But when you have it, and then you look at those skill sets, mm-hmm. the importance of those skill sets gets the volume turned up. Because what you're talking about now is not just something that we're agreeing would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice if you could talk to somebody who could parse the discussion well, was able to metacognate, check on their own biases, bring those biases out, say, look, I'm actually speaking from within this hermeneutic. I'm speaking from within this framework. Like I recognize that. So I hear what you're saying. Right. I'm having a hard time. Like, you have friends that can talk like that. That's a really delightful discussion space, especially if you're disagreeing. I mean, I think we agree with that. But you start from this framework, and what you see is those are the kinds of skills that are going to be critical for you as a belief generating machine to do the thing that you are built to do. And this isn't some secondary or tertiary thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
You are first and foremost an epistemic agent. You are trying to figure out how it works here. You are trying to figure out who and what you are. You are trying to figure out what it means to live with others. You are trying to figure out who and what other people are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Developing the skills, abilities, and techniques and relationships that will help you come into better contact with meaningful regularities, learn about them, develop the skills and abilities to utilize them, share those resources with others. That's like what you are. And we're failing systematically at it when we fail to develop exactly those abilities. And they're not some secondary or tertiary abilities. They're like the abilities we should be cultivating. If you're an epistemic agent, then good epistemic formulation should be dead center for us. Being able to figure out, what do I believe? What do I believe? What does it mean to believe?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I believe that? And where am I getting my information?
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard stuff. It's like a long road to get that right. There's a real developmental program there. But
yeah.
I mean, the more I get into the neuroscience, the more I appreciate philosophy
Mm-hmm.
as a training ground, you know, such a nice way for an undergraduate, for instance, to start getting some of those skills, like to read something, look for incoherence, look for fallacious arguments, figure out when beliefs are good or bad. Right. Fabulous training actually for us.
Right, right. And it sort of prompts a further step of inquiry to ask, given what we've seen in evidence of what social media does in terms of the manipulating our sort of addictive tendencies and predilections by way of dopamine capture and reward and, you know, foraging and wondering that in a possible world where there is more egalitarian pro-social motives to generate a digital commons that would perhaps tap into reward, but based on a lot of what you just said, wherein, you know, you are rewarding yourself or your interlocutors or whatever by having good faith conversation, by entering into dialectic, or as John would say, into dialogos that could arise out of dialectic. You know, these more healthful things that would elicit less of the what I call the sort of the cult of victimhood, or that. Because there's so much righteousness in being a victim and being somebody who's you know punching up from whatever that position is, and I'm throwing that in there kind of randomly, but it's part of that. It's part of that, and that in its own self, even you know those type of negative rewards, you know, can we right the ship, you know, in its direction? I wonder, and maybe have those digital commons, right? Is it?
Yeah,
possible?
it's yeah. So I'll say two things, and then maybe we can move on to ambient smart tech a bit. But one, I find myself in conversations a lot recently thinking about social media and smart tech and future technologies. You know, we just finished a 2-year grant project called The Predictive Dynamics of Happiness and Well-Being. And like a big chunk of that was how to be happy and how to be well with new and future tech. So conversations are coming up and out of that.
Okay.
But the more I'm looking, the more that I look at this, the more, like, not necessarily a Luddite proclivity, but like, for instance, I've got a Light Phone 3,
okay,
which is the dumb phone, the sexy new dumb phone.
Okay.
This is a fabulous bit of tech.
Okay.
It's beautiful. It's an OLED screen. It's cool to hold. It like does all the like phone fetishy things, but there's nothing in it. It's an empty box. There's no streaming, no social media, no internet. There's call, text, cool camera, GPS. That's it. And so actually the more that I look at the technology, the more I feel to say, I think restricting some of our technological consumption is probably best until we figure this out. The other thing is that I'm a big advocate of on this side of the screen change rather than on that side of the screen change. So contemplative development, meditative skills, re-controlling attention and awareness,
Nice.
working on getting our beliefs set up in the right sort of way so that we understand what's happening, like really like be educated on how these things work so that we can peel back a bit. I'm really interested in that part of the developmental work rather than thinking about like, how do we change policy? What would the tech changes be? That being said, and I'm happy to talk about that if that's interesting. That being said, we wrote this paper about how we might use extreme advanced future technologies to support our kind of system.
Way off into the cosmos.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's go exactly the other way. Let's make it all tech all the time. Now, of course, the tech that we're proposing, you own, can't be owned by anybody else.
Okay.
You can't have McDonald's, endorsed smart tech.
or Microsoft in the background,
No, you can't
data mining.
It's got to be yours.
Sealed.
It's got to be yours. It's got to be yours. Exactly. You'd have to have like, I don't know, Faraday cage around it in some way. It would have to be offline. It would have to be only for you. Because again, what we're proposing is that it gets a maximum amount of information. Mm-hmm. So much more than your like Google Nest gets from you, because this would have everything. Mm-hmm. Maybe even blood samples, definitely. When you're brushing your teeth in the morning, you can have smart sensors on your toothbrush that's going to know what you're exuding into your mouth. It will know lots about you that we're not very good at knowing about ourselves. That would be the idea. That's an ambient smart environment.
Right.
So why might that be valuable? The core reason, and then I'd love to hear what you think, and then we can grow it. The core reason is that I think that would satisfy in a very special way the two ingredients that we keep bumping into that would help us overcome. Let me roll back one sec. We did a little series of research on a bunch of psychopathologies. Mm-hmm. So we applied this model to depression, anxiety, addiction, PTSD, depersonalization, derealization, OCD, trauma, pain. Mm-hmm. And those aren't all pathologies, but you get the family resemblance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like chronic pain. Mm-hmm. And we came out of that sort of like almost 10 years of research. And we felt like we kept saying a similar thing every paper when you look at it computationally. Computational psychiatry is in the golden age right now, in part because we have these models. We have these like really rich computational models that we can use to express what might be happening in a system that's kicking out suboptimal behaviors for whatever reason. It's really powerful to look under the hood like that. And we kept finding this one signature. The one signature was, for whatever reason, and you can discern, in a variety of ways how that could happen. You get a particular kind of belief installed deep in the hierarchy. It gets some potency. And then the bad part is somehow it gets insulated from update. Mm-hmm. That's the signature over and over again. Mm-hmm. Bad belief causes drift from reality, gets insulated, becomes powerful. Mm-hmm. So addiction, the belief is drug seeking and taking behaviors will solve the entropy crisis. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It gets insulated because it's endlessly rewarding. So you constantly have precision going up. So it keeps coming offline, because when something has extreme high precision, it means you have high confidence. If you have extreme high confidence in some behavior, it just pulls right away from the nannying prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. Why would you want the prefrontal cortex checking in and being like, are you sure? You're like, yes.
Do you really?
Yes. At the systems level, the system's like, yes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Yes, I'm sure. Right. Can you quit wasting metabolism checking on me when all we have is limitless data that this is exactly the behavior selection we should be making. Right. Nothing comes close. The next one over is 3 degrees of reduction. This is 14,000. Yeah. We're not. Yes. Yeah. This is the one we're picking. Okay.
Point.
So, right. So a bad belief that gets insulated. You see that again and again and again. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons why social media is a problem, because you get a bad belief and first of all, it can instantiate the bad belief.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really good at insulating the bad belief too. Because once you have the bad belief, you find the echo chambers, the subreddits, and the 4chan channels where you're going to find everybody feeding back to you your own crummy belief. And now you're stuck in a feedback. So now it's insulated. Then when somebody goes, hey, at Thanksgiving, you're thinking some weird things and we've been meaning to talk with you. I think we've had that now increasingly at our families, people with strange beliefs that they're getting from somewhere, and you're having these uncomfortable conversations like, what's going on? You didn't used to talk like this. I see a lot of anger coming out of you. You're talking like this. It looks like you're believing this kind of thing. And the easiest thing to do for a predictive system, model updating is expensive, especially if you don't have like intellectual humility installed as like a meta way to monitor your models.
Yeah.
The cheaper way to make the world and the model fit, change the world to fit the model. Yeah. What does that look like? Leave. Tell your family member to fuck off. Mm-hmm. Go back to your echo chamber. Yeah. Then you resolved the uncertainty that was instigated by the dissenter.
Yeah.
And now you have an insulation of a bad belief. You have a very powerful, strong belief that's insulated and resists update. Don't know if you've seen that guy, the sort of one of the big heads of the flat earth movement. It's a lovely video. I show it in my class. It's just a delight.
Uh-huh.
He says, if only we could afford this gyroscope. There's this $50,000 laser gyroscope that if indeed the world is round, when a certain number of hours pass, we'll see the 15 degree shift on this laser gyroscope.
Okay.
So they raise the money, of course, because there's lots of people who believe this.
Okay.
And they buy the gyroscope, and the 2 hours go by or whatever it is, and indeed the gyroscope is tipped 15 degrees, exactly as you'd expect if the Earth was round, if it is round. Right? And he says outright, right on the video, well, we can't accept that, right? That's a big problem for us. That's a big problem for us. So we can't accept that. So he goes, the reason why that happened was heavenly rays, cosmic rays, influence the gyroscope. So what we need to do is we need to get like a zircon encased container, and then we need to launch it into orbit. It has to be above the heavenly rays. But then that's X number of millions of dollars. So now they're raising the money. So look at how insulated the bad belief becomes.
Right. Yeah.
Because you have a kind of shared problematic belief set.
Yeah. And that's so classic to kick the can down the road like that too.
Totally. So there's the signature. There's the signature that we keep bumping into where the problem is. So then the solution has to be something like the antithesis of it. It has to be not installing those kinds of bad beliefs, installing better beliefs. Okay, that's true. But if there's already one like that, you have to be able to locate where is this bad belief? Because it might not be obvious to you. You might think, no, I'm believing. See, that's the problem with this from this framework view. Mm-hmm. The shape of your generative model is the shape of your reality. Your reality will feed back to you that it's right.
Okay.
And it's your reality.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a bad belief, like the Earth is flat, the world looks like that. You're convinced that's what it is for the world to show up through that framework. Mm-hmm. You're like, look, it's self-evident. It's obvious. It's imminent. That's just the way reality presents itself. Don't you know? How can you be so stupid? You just can't see how reality presents itself. Just look around. That's why you get that kind of language. Look around. It's so obvious. Mm-hmm. It's not obvious. You're getting billions of bits of information a second. You're interested in 20 or 30,000. You're selecting that pie slice moment to moment to moment, and you can select bad pie slices. So you got to be able to locate what's the bad slice generator, and then you got to get it. You got to get it de-insulated. You've got to get information flowing back. You got to get blood flow back into the joint. Yeah. You have to do yoga of your bad belief system. Right. It's got to be malleable again. You've got to get some uncertainty in there. It doesn't have to be critical uncertainty, but you need to get back to like, wait, am I sure? Mm-hmm. Am I all the way sure? Mm-hmm. Or did I get convinced of something that's strange? You've got to get that back in play. So with the ambient smart tech rolling back around now, we think one of the things it would be good at is it would be able to track regularities that you're not good at tracking. That's already eminently valuable for an epistemic agent.
Yeah.
You don't know. I mean, the easy sell there is like heart rate variability, which we know is correlated with longevity, all sorts of good measures of successful health. You can't track your heart rate variability without some sort of Fitbit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just can't. We don't have enough interceptive access to our heart rate.
Right.
And yet it turns out that if you have that information available to you and you use it to select exercise behaviors in the right dose at the right time, at the right sleep and the right diet, you can be tracking that measure and then organizing a bunch of behavior sets around that measure to successfully increase the beneficial qualities of that measure. But you can't do that if you didn't have the measure available to you.
Sure.
If you buy that, if people don't buy that, the argument then is how many other things are like that?
Mm-hmm.
Where if you knew, like men, there's supposed to be a natural hormone fluctuation cycling for men. I don't think we're aware of it. I'm not aware of having. My wife is definitely aware of the cycle and where she is and like what that does to her view and her decision making and her emotion regulation capabilities. She knows it. She knows it to the day. She's like, I'm here. I can just feel it. I woke up weepy. That's this. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We don't feel that. But
Mm-hmm.
what if we are? What if there is a cascading cycle where you should be lifting heavy at this part and you should be resting at this part?
Mm-hmm.
And if you had a rich suite of information gathering paraphernalia, it could reveal to you the shape of your own generative model, which is often invisible to us. Mm-hmm. It's creating our reality, but it's transparent to us so that we just get presented with reality, but not the substructures that generate the reality. Mm-hmm. You could use exactly that kind of paraphernalia to reveal the model itself. And a generative model that has itself to optimize over can do some pretty phenomenal things.
Yeah.
That would be the idea. And then it would nudge you based on what it knows. So it wouldn't tell you all of these things necessarily. Mm-hmm. But what it could do is you could have an exercise routine that your smart house designed for you. And all you did was wake up in the morning, check your schedule on your touchpad that's anywhere and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it says, today you're scheduled for 11-minute workout at 4 p.m. Mm-hmm. You don't know anything about it. Good break. Show up at 4 p.m. and it has the thing that's optimal given the measures that you're looking to improve. Yeah. And you just follow the suit.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing idea. And it makes the real catch is that you're an epistemic agent and that you're well when you know more. And this is an opportunity to learn a tremendous amount about yourself and then to utilize it to do model updating, to do belief and behavior updating. That's the pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to pin a thought I had about the flat Earth, but I want to, while my little brain can respond to what you're saying. When I read the article, I went off on this like fluttery tangent about perhaps in a deeper future, when we think about guys like Josh Bongard and Mike Levin doing these chimeric systems and hybrotic systems that are carbon silico relationships. Yeah. I imagine that this house that you're talking about, this extended embodiment that we're talking about here, that if you could get the capacity to care, because I don't ever believe that machines are going to care about us other than the simulacra of care, which is fine, it's satisficient. Sure. But when you embed, neurological systems with a AI and a machine learning informed, again, hermetically sealed system that's yours, that is your assistant. That actually has the capacity to not go all the way to affective states or valent states of, but to have a modicum of concern, like to make those, again, neurons that can make these kind of, I don't know where that, I'm reaching really far here, but Bongard and Levin are doing, and their labs are doing these kind of things. And so to know that this house suddenly gives a shit about you, and they're not lying to you. They're saying, look, I have your best interest at heart here. And as long as you're not struggling, and this is where, you would have to concomitantly do your ecology of practices, wherein you are, as you said, you're taking the stickiness of rigid beliefs at the agential level and finding the flexibility and the fluidity in that, so that you can be receptive to what your house is telling you, or the Gizmotron 2000 on the wall is telling you, that is perhaps in 70 or 100 years, if we're still here, has living neurons in there that can make even more nuanced decisions that can interact with you. And because I'm hard-headed. I would always believe this is a simulacra. This is a machine that is giving me data, but I can't have the para-emotional relationship with it or the parasocial relationship with, but maybe you could so I'm reaching really far, but that's where my imagination took me.
There's two nice things there. Like, one, you're right. You still wouldn't want to give away the skillfulness of knowing how to cultivate good beliefs.
Right.
This is just another belief generating apparatus, and you still need to have some sort of like agentive say at the end of the day. I think that sounds very, very healthy.
Right.
But the other thing that sort of triggered me there was, interestingly, you're getting closer and closer to other forms of this meta system that already exist biologically for us. Okay. So what we're basically doing is we're building like the way that our mothers were early on and our fathers were early on. So when you're a young human, baby human, toddler human, you don't have a good metacognitive layer generated. Mm-hmm. You actually outsource that to your caregivers.
Right.
So when my daughter falls, she actually doesn't know what the information means. Mm-hmm. She looks at me and her eyes go wide. I'm taking in information. What happened? I'm the metacognitive layer. Mm-hmm. So if I go, she screams.
Right.
And if I go, woo, she goes, I did it. Yeah. Like I fell. How cool, you know? Yeah. So she has no idea. She has no idea what the information means yet. Yeah. She's completely relying on me to assign the weights, and to categorize it for her. Mm-hmm. She's really relying on me as a metacognitive resource. Yeah. And we do the same thing in therapy, I think. I think that might be why all therapy is valuable. If what you get from therapy is somebody re-representing your beliefs to you, mm-hmm. so that you can hear them from the outside in, because they're transparent here. Mm-hmm. So you're just living that life. And then you start talking about it, and that's one way to reveal the shape of your belief structures. Mm-hmm. And to have somebody say, let me say it back to you so you can hear it. This is what you believe. You believe this and you believe this. Mm-hmm. And to hear that and be like, like, I know I'm talking like that, aren't I? Like, I guess I believe that, but actually I've been living my life. I've been living my life without having any access to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we see it in utero. We see it with early childhood development. We see it in a therapeutic relationship. And what we're talking about is actually the benefit of all of those is being able to reveal the shape of the model to the model so that the model can do further optimization, has further optimization opportunities. We're just saying, again, something like that. So then your step to go from, house to living, to neuro-relevant house is just, it looks like just another step in that same direction, doesn't it?
Yeah. A crazy one. Yeah. Well, again, I throw my Imagineering helmet on when I'm reading and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And knowing that there are people, mad scientists out there like Levin and Bongard et al. That are doing that kind of work and could go horribly wrong, just like a lot of things, but it could also do like this house of the future. And yes, all praise to introjection and mimesis throughout every stage of our life. And when we were talking about this house, it got me thinking about, or this environment rather, that it got me thinking about Kleinian, sort of paranoid schizoid position out there in the world, and the stickiness of the addictive predilections that we have with our social media or our substances or whatever. Mm-hmm. We go into this womb-like structure that is in some sense caring for us at whatever stage of development it's in. And that we go into the depressive reparative mode, wherein we are self-reflective, we are metacognitive, we are capable of that less stickiness and more flex and fluidity. So yeah, I mean, that in its own right, again, embedded in an ecology of practices and good faith and stick-to-itiveness and all that kind of thing, you have to show up for this shit, you know?
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, I threw the Kleinian lens on, or the Frommian or whatever, and just was like, wow, yeah, we can go from that, a lot of static to in this structure that is reparative. And Carveth says reparative, but Klein was like depressive, which is, a restorative process that
I love that, actually. Yeah. I love this work where you hear, and this is a little bit orthogonal to our point, follows your line, this point about depression being useful and valuable because it represents some sort of discordancy within the belief hierarchy, and what you actually need is to break up from your partner and quit your job and move home to your mom's and stay low for 6 months while you discharge these entropy vulnerable dynamics and then start again. So it's kind of like a forest fire, this like necessary forest fire that you have a few times in your life. I love that narrative. I like that idea.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned from you and Vervaeke and all the others is that for me, development, I should say, not transcendence, but development in a healthy, positively valent way is, for me, there's a triad. It's ritual, disruption, and dialectic, and those are elements that we carry with us in our purse, in our little leather pouch. That,
I love it.
Well, I get that,
especially disruption, because like a generative model that's comfortable with breaking its own models in search of better models is one that doesn't get stuck in these ways.
Yeah.
And all of these are about sicknesses of confidence.
Right.
Of course, no confidence is bad too, but a modicum of humility where you're willing to break your own belief structure. This is why things like Buddhist contemplative technologies are so relevant. They're just so uncertainty generating these practices. So who's seeing that? Is that pain? Check again. Check again. Are you sure? Are you confident that that's what it is? And who's seeing it? What does it mean to see it? Those are all deconstructive invites.
Yeah, frame break. And in your publication, in that article, you mentioned that the system can be disruptive. It can throw you out of your comfort zone.
If it was going to work right, it couldn't be sycophantic.
Yeah.
It would have to be like, that's bad. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Or like, here, I'm going to give you a bunch of news. I'm going to give you a bunch of news clips from the other side, and it's going to make you feel bad.
Yeah.
But you need to see it because you're out of position.
Right.
You're trending in overly one way or another, in a way where you're now starting to like self-bias. So you need to start imbibing more moderate news so that you can check to see if you still want to do that. So that's agentive. So you're not just drifting.
Sure. You're disrupting the attractor or shifting the canalization a little bit. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. I'll unpin my little flat earth comment, and then I want to check in with you because I know we're getting close to your hour and
I got a boogie.
You got it. Do you have a minute or?
I've got a minute.
Okay. So if I were to argue with a flat earther, which I would never get anywhere, but shot towers, that's all I would say is just go to a shot tower and watch them make lead shot and come back and we'll talk. So Mark, very quickly, is there anything you want to add? Any summative, conclusive statements that you want to throw in just to ice this beautiful cake that we've made today? Anything?
I'm just going to say one more thing that I've already said. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not sure what the answer is here, but starting from the framework, we have a first principled reason for taking seriously the way in which we form beliefs. If you take anything away from this talk that I think would be valuable, it would be start having a discussion with your peers who can hear this and are interested in thinking along these lines about what do you believe? Why do you believe it? What does it mean to believe well? And just check in, make a little list of where am I in touch with various kinds of media where I might be being influenced by the beliefs, where my beliefs may be being influenced, even if I don't know they are. And then just be awake to that. You don't necessarily have to stop, but just be mindful, be mindful of, whoa, actually I do let the AI drive me around 7 hours a day. And it shows me all sorts of, every fourth clip is something weird. And that's a place where I might be updating a model. And I don't know how to do it exactly right. But I think the conversation is already injecting some of that intellectual humility. Check to see what your beliefs are. How are they being installed?
Okay.
I think is really valuable.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And thank you for this time that you've given me and the audience. I really appreciate it.
Let's do it again.
Well, when you move through your family's pregnancy and you are once again a new father and your life is somewhat stable, let's have you back. Because if this was a good experience, I would
let's do it. Let's do it in the new year. Let's do it in the new year.
Beautiful. Yeah, awesome. I'll reach out to you around that time. Mark, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.